Hello, and thank you for watching this video. In this video, we'll cover how and when to refresh your grid metadata. So what is grid metadata? GridBuddy uses metadata to display dependent and record type pick lists, lookup filters, and lookup layouts in your grid. When a new grid is created, the metadata is automatically retrieved for it and stored in the GB global meta custom object. But if dependent or record type pick list values or lookup filters or layouts change in your org, use the refresh all grid metadata link on the GridWizard landing page or the refresh grid metadata link on GridWizard step 1 to refresh the grid metadata. So what does this mean? In this example, I'm looking at my grid and I will be actually just wanting to validate that I have all my new account executives or any old account executives cleared off this list. So I can actually go through the pick list and I can see Will is still listed as an active AE. He's actually left the company, so I'd like to remove him, as well as we have a new hire. So I'll want to make an edit to my pick list values to that AE field on the opportunity object. I've also noticed that when I'm looking at one of my lookup dialogues or my lookup layouts in the grid, that the account type field is right next to the account name, and I'd actually want that down by the owner alias. So to do that, first I would need to make these changes just like I would through standard Salesforce setup to change the order of those fields in this lookup layout. So here I'm going to the search layouts for the account page, and I can go in and reorder the fields into the order that I'd like to see them in, moving the type to the very end. So now that I've made that change here, that would be reflected in my standard Salesforce pages. I'd still like to make some changes to the pick list values. So I'm going to add my new hire pick list value, as well as I'm going to remove one of my older employees that's no longer with the company. And so we'll just deactivate Will here. And now that those changes are complete in my Salesforce setup, for those changes to be reflected within the grid, there are still some steps that I would need to take to refresh the grid metadata. So again, just navigating to the GridWizard tab, I have the option to refresh all grid metadata through a link right here. This one will take a few minutes to complete since it is refreshing the metadata for every object in your Salesforce instance. Or if I'd like to just refresh the grid metadata for that particular grid, this is a little bit quicker when you are doing deployments for a specific grid. So I'm going to go ahead and select this option. So when I do navigate to GridWizard step 1, select the grid name that I'd like to see, that's when I would see the refresh grid metadata link. This is completely normal to see this metadata retrieval in progress message. Simply want to see that message to be no longer visible. That's an indication that the GridBuddy metadata refresh is complete. So now that we're not seeing that message there, I can go back to my grid. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this layout just so that it is getting the latest metadata. And we'll check the pick list value for the account executive, and I can see that Will has been removed and I now have my new hire available. I wanted to check the lookup layout for my account lookup, and I can see the account type has been moved to the final field just where I'd like it to be. So that's a basic overview of when and why to refresh the grid metadata. If you have any questions or need some additional support, please feel free to contact us at appbuddy.com/contact.